Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a beer, it's time for some Path of Exile discussion. GG announced today that at some point tomorrow, probably about the time that this video is 24 or 25 hours old, they're going to make a major patch that is going to address the serious long-term issue Standard League has had with the map tab. So Standard is in a strange place in Path of Exile where not all that many people play it. It seems like 10 to 15% of the player base play the Standard League. But it's actually probably the right place to play the game for a larger percentage of players. Basically, everyone that sets themselves goals in a temporary league that they just don't have enough playtime to finish would probably find that they'd have more fun if they played in Standard. But all that aside, Standard's been pretty much unplayable for the last 3 months, at least for veteran players who have a long established map pool. The reason for this has been that the map stash tabs have been completely broken. One of the things that's happened in Path of Exile every time the Atlas has been shuffled around is that all of the old map objects remain playable, like they remain as legacy items in the game. So for instance, I have a number of, say, tier 7 dungeon maps from very early in Path of Exile's history that, these items can still be run, they still work just fine. They're pretty similar to what they were back in the day when they were able to drop. But if you were to run them, they would just drop loot like a current tier 7 map. However, these cannot fit into the same map stash tabs as current maps, as present day maps. And so this has created a situation where over time, people tend to build up a lot of remove only map tabs. I know that my standard stash tab, if I ever go into it, there's something like 20 different remove-only map tabs in there. It's a ridiculous amount, and it keeps growing every time a league happens. What's being changed here is that the functionality to convert all of the maps in your stash tab to the current series is being restored. It's still there in the game at the moment in 3.16, but it breaks for anyone that has a lot of maps in their stash tab. The reason it breaks is that if you have, say, 50 carcass maps of tier 16 and 50 summit maps of tier 16, and you try to apply the convert all functionality to them, it may end up putting them to being 100 of the same tier 16 map now. So let's say that it pushes them into 100 tier 16 alleyways maps. And then that's a problem because your map stash tab can only hold 72. This then causes the entire map stash tab conversion event to fail, and your map stash tab to be reverted back to where it was. So you wind up in this situation where you've got a map stash that you can remove maps from, but you can't add new maps to it because it is locked on the map stash tab settings from Expedition League or from some past league, maybe not Expedition, maybe from a different one. This has meant that the map stash tab has been pretty much useless in Standard. The way that they're fixing it is kind of ingenious. What they're doing is they're improving the way that the map stash tab works. So your purchased map stash tab, assuming you've got one, this video doesn't really apply if you don't, it'll always be set to the current map series. Then if the map stash tab series changes and your map stash is not empty, it becomes remove only, and you'll get a new empty map stash tab set to the current series. So this means that whereas at the moment, if you had only played an Expedition League and then you stayed playing in Standard, you'd had an Expedition series of maps, an Expedition Atlas themed map stash tab that was add remove, and then you'd have nothing that is Scourge series. Now you'll have a Scourge add remove and an Expedition remove only. You can then order the game to convert all of your Expedition series maps into Scourge maps, and it will try to do as many as it can, but if it hits a point where it can't go on, then it will, it'll bring up this little conversion information progress window. If it hits a point where it can't go on, it'll just stop. It won't cause you some sort of massive crash. You won't lose any maps. You'll just end up with a bunch of your maps being converted and then a few of them not being converted. So this is miles better. This does break one corner case use of map stash tabs. So people who purchased a map stash tab solely for the purposes of collecting legacy maps, i.e. maps that can no longer drop, they will find that this change breaks their map stash tab, and GGG are offering refunds for the probably couple of dozen people that will be in that situation. Anyways, this is an overdue fix, but it does seem like it's probably the best way that they could fix this, and it will make Standard more hospitable for people who are interested in playing it. Side note, you should definitely give Standard a look if you are someone who, say, wants to beat Cyrus, wants to beat the Maven, wants to beat Uber Elder, but you don't feel that you can progress your character enough in 3 months. You're busy, you've got a 9 to 5 job, you've got kids or whatever, and you just don't have enough gaming time. If you're in that situation, then I would suggest giving Standard a go, because you might find that it's the best way to play the game for you. That's all I got on this. May your Varlorbs have interesting results, and hopefully GGG don't use one on this patch. The only thing I will finish with is that you probably don't want to play for an hour after this patch happens. This is the sort of patch that's changing the way that the database works. Let's just wait an hour, let other people be the people who actually test whether this works on the live server. GGG would have undoubtedly done some internal QA, but QA is not something that gets done flawlessly, even at larger places than GGG, and so there are likely to be little mistakes. Just watch for an hour, monitor discussion on the Path of Exile subreddit. If it seems like the place is on fire, then you should probably just wait another little bit longer and just see what happens afterwards.